Small plane took off from the runway and crashed only 15 minutes later.
Planes usually take off, soar through the sky, and make a smooth landing, a routine we all know and love. But what happens when things don't go quite as planned? Sometimes it's a scary crash, and other times it's an unexpected, jaw-dropping landing. In today's video, we're diving into the most unbelievable aviation moments ever caught on camera. Moments that will have you on the edge of your seat. From close calls to incredible feats, these are the 20 wildest and most unforgettable moments in aviation history. Let's take off and see what happens when flying goes way off the script. Door blows out. An Alaska Airlines Boeing 737 MAX faced a terrifying situation when one of its doors blew open mid-air shortly after takeoff. Passengers aboard, traveling from Portland to Ontario, California, captured shocking videos showing the mid-cabin door completely separating from the plane. The incident occurred just minutes after takeoff. Passengers were stunned as the door was ripped off while the plane was still in the sky. Thankfully, the plane was able to turn around and land safely back at Portland International Airport. On board were 171 passengers and 6 crew members, all of whom were unharmed. The U.S. National Transportation Safety Board is now investigating the event to understand why this happened. Flight tracking data shows the plane reached an altitude of over 16,000 feet before it was safely diverted back to Portland. This specific Boeing was delivered to Alaska Airlines in October 2023 and had completed only 145 flights. The aircraft's rear exit door, located behind the wings, is normally sealed on Alaska Airlines flights. It's a safety feature that ensures the door can't open during the flight. The airline and investigators will now work to figure out how and why this safety door came loose mid-flight. The investigation is still ongoing, and more details are expected soon. Landing on fire. A Frontier Airlines flight faced a scary situation as it made a hard landing at Harry Reid International Airport in Las Vegas. Flight 1326 was coming from San Diego when the pilots noticed smoke in the cockpit. They quickly declared an emergency. As the plane landed, it had a rough touchdown, causing the tires to blow. Video taken by witnesses shows flames coming from under the plane, followed by a trail of smoke. The situation looked intense, but thankfully, emergency crews were ready. The Clark County Fire Department rushed to the scene. There were 190 passengers and 7 crew members on board, and everyone was safely evacuated. Airport officials confirmed that all the passengers and crew were taken to the gate area without injury. The incident happened at about 3:15 in the afternoon. The cause of the fire and hard landing is still under investigation. The FAA said there was a ground stop at the airport, affecting flights until 7 p.m. The National Transportation Safety Board is also looking into what happened. The investigation will help determine why the plane had such a hard landing and what caused the fire. For now, both the airline and authorities are working to figure out what went wrong. Too low. A clear, sunny day in Greece turned into a jaw-dropping moment for plane spotters when a Wizz airplane made a shockingly close landing at Skiathos Airport. On August 5th, pilot Dimitrios Grigoriou filmed the breathtaking moment as an Airbus flew just above a crowd of photographers. As the plane descended, one photographer even had to duck as it passed dangerously close overhead. This close landing is possible because Skiathos Airport has a shorter runway, only 5,341 feet long. Most airports have runways that are about twice as long, around 10,000 to 12,000 feet. This forces pilots to begin their descent much lower to land safely. The hot weather also played a role. On warm days, the air is less dense, which makes it harder for the plane to slow down once it hits the runway. With less air available for reverse thrust, the plane has to fly lower to quickly slow down. The flight, Wizz Air Flight 8447, took off from Naples, Italy, and flew for just over an hour. As it descended from 14,000 feet, the plane passed over the Pagasetic Gulf, then made a tight circle over Skiathos Island before landing. At one point, the plane flew just 40 feet above the plane spotters, making for an unforgettable close-up view. Fire in the air. Flames shot from the engine of an Air Canada Boeing 777 just moments after takeoff, leaving passengers and onlookers in shock. The plane, packed with nearly 400 people, had barely left Toronto Pearson Airport when sparks began flying from the engine. In a video captured by a witness, someone can be heard saying, "Holy crap, it's got an engine fire." The terrifying moment happened shortly after the flight took off for Paris at 8:45 p.m. on a Wednesday night. But just 65 minutes later, the plane was back on the ground at Pearson, making an emergency landing. The aircraft was met by emergency teams, and thankfully, everyone on board was safe. After inspection, the plane was taken out of service for further checks, and passengers were moved to another flight that left for Paris a few hours later. This engine fire is just the latest in a string of worrying incidents involving Boeing aircraft. A similar engine fire forced a Garuda Indonesia flight to make an emergency landing weeks earlier. In April, a Boeing 737-800 had its engine ripped apart shortly after takeoff. And earlier this year, a Boeing 737 had part of its fuselage separate mid-flight with Alaska Airlines. These incidents have raised serious concerns about Boeing's safety. Flying down. On a tragic day in Afghanistan, a Boeing 747 cargo jet crashed shortly after taking off from Bagram Air Base, killing all 7 crew members on board. The plane was carrying heavy military vehicles, including 5 mine-resistant vehicles, and had just refueled before heading toward Dubai. A nearby dashboard camera caught the last moments of the plane. The video shows the jet beginning to climb, but just 12 seconds in, it stalls, rolls side to side, and then plunges to the ground. The crash erupts into a massive fireball with thick black smoke rising into the air. Investigators are working hard to understand what went wrong. The plane's black boxes, which hold vital flight data and cockpit conversations, are a key focus. Some experts believe the crash might have been caused by the plane being overloaded, with too much weight at the rear. This could have made it uncontrollable. The plane was operated by National Airlines, a company that helps move military equipment. It had stopped in Bagram to refuel before heading to Dubai. 6 of the victims were from Michigan and 1 was from Kentucky. Despite claims from the Taliban that they shot down the plane, no evidence has confirmed that. Investigators are still working to figure out exactly what caused this deadly crash. The failed landing. On May 5, 2019, disaster struck at Moscow's Sheremetyevo Airport. A Russian Aeroflot plane, the Sukhoi Superjet 100, crashed shortly after takeoff, killing 41 people. The plane was carrying 73 passengers and 5 crew members. Survivors say the plane was hit by lightning before it made an emergency return to the airport. The plane landed with full fuel tanks, making the situation even more dangerous. The aircraft burst into flames on the runway, and passengers were forced to use emergency exit slides to escape the burning wreck. Dramatic videos showed fire crews rushing to the scene while passengers fled for safety. Witnesses said it was a miracle that anyone survived. 37 people made it out alive, including 33 passengers and 4 crew members. 2 children were among the dead. Survivors praised the flight attendants, with one saying, "Only thanks to the crew, I survived." Though there were technical issues with the plane, some survivors believe the lightning strike caused the trouble. Experts say lightning strikes on planes are not uncommon, but crashes are rare. The incident left many shaken as black smoke filled the sky and flames tore through the plane. The tragic event is remembered as a reminder of how quickly danger can strike in the sky. Broke into 2. A DHL cargo plane made a dramatic emergency landing at Costa Rica's Juan Santamaria Airport after a mechanical failure. The Boeing 757, which was bound for Guatemala, experienced a hydraulic issue just after takeoff. The pilot immediately requested an emergency landing, but things took a wild turn when the plane skidded off the runway, broke in 2, and lost its tail. The yellow DHL plane was quickly doused with firefighting foam as it came to a stop in a grassy area near the runway. Photos showed the wreckage, with the tail completely detached and one wing severely damaged. Miraculously, all crew members were unharmed, though one was checked out as a precaution. The incident caused chaos at the airport. The runway was closed for several hours, delaying over 8,000 passengers and 57 flights. However, the airport was able to reopen faster than expected, just 5 hours after the crash. DHL and local authorities quickly activated their response teams and began investigating what went wrong. Despite the dramatic scene, no lives were lost, and the crew acted swiftly to prevent a worse outcome. This crash landing shows just how quickly things can go wrong in aviation, but also how important safety measures and quick reactions are in preventing disaster. The open canopy. Imagine flying at high speeds, performing aerobatic maneuvers, when suddenly the glass canopy of your plane flies open and shatters mid-flight. That's exactly what happened to pilot and composer Nareen Melkumjan during a training flight in her Extra 330 LX monoplane. As she started a barrel roll, the canopy flew off, exposing her to powerful winds and chaos. The noise was deafening, and the loss of visibility made it hard to breathe and see. Melkumjan described the experience as terrifying, saying it took her 28 hours to fully recover her vision. Despite the panic, she stayed focused on the task at hand, landing the plane safely. "The hardest part was keeping the power in and trading my vision for energy," she said. "Through all the confusion and noise, the one thing that came through clearly on the radio was, 'Just keep flying.'" Thanks to her calmness and skill, Melkumjan managed to land safely. Afterward, she realized the cause of the issue. She hadn't properly checked the canopy locking pin before takeoff. It hadn't been locked into place, which led to the disaster. Melkumjan also admitted she wasn't at her best that day, having just recovered from COVID and flying without eye protection. She shared the footage years later to warn other pilots about the importance of thorough pre-flight checks, hoping her story would serve as a valuable lesson for others. Helicopter crash into the plane. In a shocking moment, a helicopter crashes into a plane in Texas, sending rotor blades flying everywhere, but the pilot miraculously walks away unharmed. CCTV footage shows the Black Robinson R-44 helicopter spiraling out of control as it approaches its garage, trying to land. Instead of touching down, the helicopter swerves and crashes into a small white stationary plane. The impact is violent, and the helicopter's rotor blades keep spinning wildly, smashing into the other aircraft. For what feels like an eternity, the blades continue to whirl, causing chaos as they collide with the plane. Finally, the rotor slows down, and the noise stops. Moments later, 3 men in black rush out from the garage to check on the pilot. Unbelievably, the pilot, the only one on board, steps out of the wreckage and walks away, completely unharmed. The crash took place at Pearland Regional Airport at around 9:30 a.m. on Sunday. Emergency services were called to the scene, but doctors confirmed that no medical treatment was needed. The Federal Aviation Administration is now investigating the cause of the crash. This close call is a reminder of how quickly things can go wrong in the air. But against all odds, the pilot survived without a scratch. An incredible story of luck and survival. Balloon in the mountains. 2 Britons watched in horror as a giant hot air balloon packed with 20 tourists and 2 pilots crashed into Turkey's famous fairy chimney rock formations. The terrifying moment happened around 6 in the morning after a freak gust of wind pushed the balloon into the rocks in Love Valley, Cappadocia. Rebecca Horsfall, 31, was at a scenic viewpoint with her partner, Kieran McDonnell, to capture the sunrise when disaster struck. She filmed the shocking moment as the balloon slammed into the rocks, describing it as incredibly scary. She added that the basket just slipped down the mountainside. A sudden gust of wind caused the crash as pilot Kana Uzun tried to land the balloon. Emergency services arrived quickly, and witnesses watched as the deflating balloon was secured. Rebecca's drone captured footage of a passenger being fanned after fainting from the shock. Despite the rough landing, no injuries were reported. Local officials confirmed that all 20 passengers and 2 pilots were unharmed. One passenger praised the pilot, saying he provided confidence during the landing. Rebecca, who is traveling Turkey in a camper van with her partner and 3 dogs, said that they have been here for a week watching balloons rise every morning. This was not what they expected to see. Thankfully, everyone walked away safely from the frightening scene. Midair collision. A devastating mid-air collision involving 2 Navy helicopters at Malaysia's Lumut Naval Base has left at least 10 crew members dead. The tragic incident occurred during a rehearsal for the Royal Malaysian Navy's upcoming 90th anniversary parade. In shocking footage shared online, one helicopter is seen clipping the rotor of the other, causing both aircraft to crash. One helicopter plummeted onto a running track, while the other crashed into a nearby swimming pool. There were no survivors. The Royal Malaysian Navy confirmed that all 10 crew members aboard the helicopters lost their lives at the scene. The helicopters involved in the crash were a HOM model and a Fennec model. The accident occurred around 9 in the morning. Gruesome photos from the site showed the wreckage of one helicopter on the stadium track, surrounded by debris and rescue personnel. Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim expressed his deepest condolences to the families of the victims, calling the event a heart-wrenching tragedy. This tragedy serves as a painful reminder of the risks involved in military operations, even during routine preparations for public events. Rope snap. A Gujarat couple's parasailing adventure in Diu took a scary turn when the rope of their parachute snapped. Ajit Kathad, 30, and his wife Sala Kathad, 31, were enjoying a ride off Nagoa Beach when, just as they reached the highest point, the rope broke, sending them falling into the sea. The terrifying moment was caught on video by Ajit's brother Rakesh, who was on the powerboat. He screamed in panic as he watched them plunge from a great height. "I was recording and had no idea what to do," Rakesh said, feeling helpless as the couple fell. Luckily, the couple was wearing life jackets, and lifeguards quickly rushed in to rescue them. Both were shaken, but thankfully they weren't hurt. Ajit described how the parachute swayed uncontrollably after the rope snapped, making it hard to stay calm. His wife Sala was in shock and couldn't speak for several minutes. Before the accident, Rakesh had warned the operators that the rope looked frayed, but they assured him it was fine. The owner of the company blamed the accident on strong winds, calling it a rare incident. However, the couple felt the parasailing service was careless and even considered filing a complaint, though they eventually decided not to. Crash in the water. On a sunny Saturday, a plane made an unexpected splash into the water off Hampton Beach, New Hampshire. Around noon, the plane, carrying a banner, tried to land on the water. As it touched down, the tail flipped into the air, but the plane quickly turned back and landed upright. The pilot, who was the only person on board, had no injuries and was rescued by lifeguards within moments. The plane had been flying with a banner promoting a local business when it faced trouble. Police said the pilot reported engine issues before attempting to land in the water. The plane was a Piper and was registered to Eugene F. Gray, a co-owner of Skyline's Aerial Ads based in Northampton. Flight tracking shows the plane took off from Hampton Airfield around 10:45 in the morning. It made a few laps along Hampton Beach and Salisbury Beach before its flight ended at 11:59. Once the plane was safely pulled to shore, police and the FAA began investigating the cause of the crash. Though the pilot didn't speak to reporters, the quick rescue and no injuries were a huge relief for everyone. This close call reminds us how quickly things can change in the air. The flying car. Imagine watching a flying car soar through the sky. A prototype flying car recently completed a test flight between two cities in Slovakia, staying in the air for 35 minutes. The video shows Klein Vision's air car taking off from Nitra and flying toward Bratislava. It's powered by a 160 horsepower BMW engine and features a fixed propeller. What's even cooler? It transforms from a car to an aircraft in less than 3 minutes. In the footage, the air car reaches impressive speeds, flying at over 118 miles per hour and cruising at 8,200 feet. As it glides through the sky, you can see the smooth transition from a regular road car to a flying machine. After landing in Bratislava, the car switches back to a road vehicle, and the CEO, Stefan Klein, drives it straight into the city center. Klein Vision is already working on a new version, the Air Car Prototype 2. This upgraded model will have a 300 horsepower engine, reach speeds of 186 miles per hour, and travel over 620 miles. There are plans for 3- and 4-seater versions, plus twin-engine and amphibious models. This flying car might just change the way we travel, and watching it in action makes you believe flying cars could be a reality sooner than we think. Bird strike. Flames shot from the engine of a United Airlines plane right after it took off from Chicago O'Hare Airport. Passengers and witnesses on the ground were left in shock as they saw flames shooting out of the left engine. The plane, originally heading to Miami, had to turn back to the airport for an emergency landing. The cause of the fire? A bird strikes just moments after takeoff. People nearby described hearing loud noises and seeing flames. One witness, Alison Doshan, said the sound was incredibly loud and she couldn't stop staring at the burning engine. Another, Chris McCullough, heard a huge rumble as the plane passed over his house and saw flames bursting out of the engine. A video shared on social media showed the flames clearly visible from the plane's engine. Despite the terrifying scene, United Airlines confirmed that the plane landed safely around 11:15 in the morning. No one was hurt. After landing, passengers were taken off the plane and a new aircraft was brought in to continue the flight. It took off again at 1:24 in the afternoon. The Federal Aviation Administration is now investigating the bird strike. While the incident was scary, the quick response and safe landing ensured everyone's safety. It's a reminder of how dangerous bird strikes can be to aircraft. Getting tangled. A paraglider in Spain narrowly escaped death after a terrifying freefall. Kevin Phillip, an experienced pilot, shared footage of his near-death experience while performing an acro-paragliding trick in Organya, Spain. Strong turbulence caused chaos in the air. His brake line became stuck. The video shows him plummeting as his parachute lines tangle around him. Desperately, he deployed his rescue parachute, but it failed to open and instead wrapped tightly around him. Philip later explained that falling into the tangled lines and wing made deploying the rescue chute incredibly difficult. The twisted wing caused his speed to increase rapidly as he spiraled toward the ground. With only 1 second left before impact, Philip managed to manually open the rescue chute. A small orange parachute inflated just in time, slowing his descent and saving his life. He described the event as rare and unlucky, writing, "This was not the day to die," and urged others to fly high, land safe. According to the US Hang Gliding and Paragliding Association, paragliders use lightweight aircraft with no rigid frame. Pilots sit in a harness suspended below a fabric wing made of interconnected cells. These aircraft can glide for hundreds of miles, soar for hours, or descend from mountains in calm air. Philip's story highlights how seconds can make all the difference in extreme sports. On the highway, a dash camera captured a jaw-dropping moment north of Toronto when a small plane nearly collided with traffic. The single-engine Cirrus SR-20 plane took off from Buttonville Airport in Markham, Ontario, but something went terribly wrong. The incident happened on a Tuesday afternoon around 2 o'clock. The plane struggled to gain height after takeoff. It crashed through a fence and came flying dangerously low over a busy road. In the video, one of its wings just barely missed the front of a moving car. Onlookers were stunned as the plane narrowly avoided disaster. It eventually crashed into a ditch on the other side of the road, leaving its nose and sides severely damaged. York Regional Police called it amazing that no cars were struck. Inside the plane were a male instructor and a female student. Both escaped without injuries. Drivers on the road were also unharmed. The Transportation Safety Board of Canada is investigating the crash. Officials said the instructor was practicing a routine training maneuver called touch and go. This involves landing, slowing down, and quickly taking off again. It's a standard exercise for pilots, but this time something went wrong. Investigators are now trying to figure out why the plane couldn't climb properly. For everyone involved, it was a close call they won't soon forget. The spinning helicopter. A 74-year-old hiker had an unexpected dizzying ride during her rescue from an Arizona mountain. After a fall on Piestewa Peak, the woman was hoisted into a rescue helicopter, but things quickly took a wild turn. As the helicopter lifted off, her stretcher spun out of control, twirling in the air for more than 40 seconds. The spinning was caused by a line that wasn't working properly, leaving the stretcher uncontrollably twisting in the powerful backwash of the helicopter's rotor blades. The rescue crew fought to stop the wild spin by raising and lowering the stretcher multiple times. Finally, the helicopter's forward motion slowed the rotation enough to safely bring her inside. Despite the chaos, the woman, who was treated for dizziness and nausea, didn't suffer any major injuries. Phoenix Fire Captain Bobby Dubnow reassured the woman, telling her everything would be okay. The helicopter's chief pilot, Paul Apolinar, explained that this kind of spinning can happen during rescues and that the team is always prepared for it. Luckily, the woman only had a little dizziness to show for her wild ride. It was a terrifying moment, but in the end, a successful and safe rescue. Catching the rocket. SpaceX just made history in a big way. In a stunning test flight, they launched the world's biggest rocket, the Super Heavy Starship, and then caught the massive booster with huge mechanical arms. Known as Mechazilla, these arms grabbed the booster as it descended back to Earth, something never done before. The rocket took off from SpaceX's Texas site with an earth-shaking roar from its 33 powerful engines. After just 3 minutes, the booster separated and turned around, heading back to the launch site. As it neared, the Mechazilla arms moved in, gently catching the rocket above the pad. This was a huge leap towards reusable rockets, which is SpaceX's goal. Meanwhile, the Starship upper stage continued its journey into orbit, re-entering the atmosphere. It faced extreme heat, over 3,000 degrees, but survived thanks to new heat shields and fins. This test flight proves that SpaceX is getting closer to a future where rockets can be launched, landed, and reused in a matter of days. This will be key for future missions to the Moon, Mars, and beyond. With rapid reusability, space travel could soon become cheaper and more efficient, opening up the universe for everyone. What SpaceX did today marks a giant leap in space exploration. Plane escapes tornado. In this jaw-dropping video, a passenger plane narrowly escapes a tornado while flying in the air. As the plane cruises along, you can see the tornadoes spinning dangerously close. The plane flies right through the path of one of the tornadoes, getting incredibly close to the swirling winds. This intense moment was captured by a passenger flying on a Southwest Airlines B737 near Fort Lauderdale Airport, where 2 tornadoes were reported. Despite the terrifying close call, the plane safely avoided the worst of the storm, and thankfully no one was hurt. It's a heart-pounding moment, showing just how unpredictable nature can be when you're up in the sky. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more exciting ones.